Facebook Live. We were talking about pasting links on the.
I'm gonna paste some, but if you all have it up and you want to paste some, feel free to as well.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're live now. Hi there, my name is Jeremy Nichols. I'm the Climate and Energy Program Director for Wild Earth Guardians. And if you're joining us, this is our weekly Facebook Live check-in. And I have with me here today, Rebecca Sobel and Becca Fisher with our Climate and Energy team. You guys want to introduce yourself, Rebecca?
Hi, we're there's 3 people on the Climate and Energy team and 2 of them are named Rebecca. So we're the Rebecca's powerhouses of climate and energy. My name is Rebecca Sobel. I'm the senior campaigner in our Climate and Energy program. And I'm talking to you today from Santa Fe.
Hi, and I'm Becca Fisher I'm the Climate and Energy Program Attorney with Wild Earth Guardians in the Denver office. So nice to hear y'all.
Yes, the Denver office, i.e. your house for the moment. Yes, I'm in the Denver office too, i.e. my home in Golden, Colorado. We're still hunkered down here and hope everybody's hanging in there in light of the crisis. One thing just to be mindful of, a lot of states, including Colorado, are starting to ease up on some of the stay-at-home restrictions. And I just want to be sure people don't get a false sense of security here. We all still need to be doing our part to slow the spread and to not overwhelm our healthcare system. And so please be mindful of that. Sorry, I have to do the health PSA at the beginning here, but I feel like we have a responsibility here with our audience. And also just want to give a shout out to the folks on the front lines, frontline service workers and those working in the healthcare side of things. Thanks for all they're doing and all the risks they're taking to help ensure people stay safe and healthy. So I want to give a shout out there. Today is kind of a special day. It is Earth Day, Earth Day 2020. And it's not only Earth Day, it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And of course, it's coming in the midst of an unprecedented crisis, which is both, a little disorienting, but also tremendously, I want to say empowering in a sense, in that we're all in this mode of revisioning what our society, what our economies can look like moving forward. And we're seeing things like, massive reduction in cars on the road and consumption of fossil fuels right now, and seeing that, wow, in the face of a crisis, we can really change things and turn things around. So that's a lot of focus today, and there's a lot of great things going on around Earth Day. Rebecca, you have been tracking there's all sorts of virtual events going on, because of course we can't show up. If this was a regular Earth Day, we'd be showing up in force. We'd have a massive protest in Denver and Albuquerque and elsewhere in the American West, but obviously that ain't happening. What is happening?
Yeah, so first let's ground it in a little bit of context, right? You sort of talked about the opportunity of Earth Day in Corona times. And let's remember that 50 years ago, over 20 million people marched in the United States and ushered in the wave of real federal environmental protections. And that was also at a time when oil was literally covering rivers flowing through cities. We were dealing with huge environmental toxic waste cleanups. Now, 50 years later, our planet is on fire. We're in a climate emergency. And we are reminded that we're in a climate emergency in the midst of this respiratory pandemic, the coronavirus, which we also know is exacerbated by poor air quality from the burning of fossil fuels. And that our planet, our house is on fire, and we need to start acting like it. I think, the opportunity or the moment of Earth Day 2020 is a dress rehearsal for climate change, is looking at where we are at this moment in time, which is quarantine in our homes and having to come together as a community to weather a public health pandemic across the world. We realize sort of how small our world is all at once, and how interconnected we all are, and how the actions of one country affect the actions of another country, or states and counties. And so the Earth Day actions for 2020, spearheaded by over 500 organizations, are 3 days, or there's many things happening today, but Earth Day 2020 live.org is 3 days of live streaming of events across the world related to Earth Day. And I'll I definitely have my own opinion, but I don't know if folks that are watching saw Lady Gaga's 8-hour live stream this past weekend. She raised, or she and others raised over $300 billion for COVID-19 relief efforts. And I have to say, and of course I'm biased, so far the Earth Day 2020 live show is beating Gaga's show this weekend. And I'm personally finding the content in there way more compelling. We were lucky enough this morning that a beautiful teaser film from my feature full-length documentary that'll come out soon, called We Are Greater Chaco. We got to air that at the beginning of the national live stream this morning. So hopefully new eyes across the world got to give us get a sense of what's going on in the Greater Chaco area, and hopefully send some comments to the Bureau of Land Management before the May 28th deadline, where BLM is proposing to drill 3,000 new wells in that region.
Yeah, it's a travesty, and it was so cool, and that's so cool to hear that the Earth Day Live event so far, the virtual event or events, is so far beating the One World event that happened last weekend. Not to diminish its importance. If anybody saw it, it was great. It was important. Everybody's stepping up and doing what they can, and a lot of folks stepping up on this Earth Day event as well, and of course, a lot of celebrities, which is great. It helps raise the profile, get the attention. But the cool thing that I'm seeing on this Earth Day Live stream, which is going on for 3 days, right? I mean, this isn't, yes, it's Earth Day, but we're kind of making a week out of it, is all the local live events that are happening. Like people stepping up in their communities and having the chance to live stream webinars, panel discussions, how-tos, and other entertaining events, and have the chance to get an international audience in a way. And so if you go to the Earth Day Live website, definitely tune in, check out what's going on, not only in your community, but other communities. I mean, there's things happening all over the country. There's stuff happening in Wyoming, all throughout Colorado, New Mexico, all throughout the American West. So really cool, really inspiring. And I know a lot of us hunkered down now and practicing social distancing. We're all looking for connection. Well, get connected with folks who are interested in being a part of a movement to help continue to make progress in confronting the climate crisis, and in doing so, help to make a difference for this coronavirus crisis, because they really do go hand in hand in many respects. And they've, if anything, the coronavirus has just underscored the imperative and urgency for us to confront the climate crisis, to help get things back on track to a more sustainable way of living. So, and Rebecca, the Chaco video, we're going to be posting a link to it soon. Oh, let's see. Oh, there's a link here on the website We Are Greater Chaco. So yeah, Rebecca, you. One of the things that we're seeing right now, the BLM is proposing its drilling plan that would be more than 3,000 wells. And of course, it's coming as the Navajo Nation and a lot of our friends and allies in the Eastern Navajo Nation are really, they're getting hit by the coronavirus in big ways, and really, sad and disturbing ways. It really is this confluence of like, wow, we're trying to protect the environment as they're dealing with the very real health consequences of a degraded environment. Of course, underscores the need to rein in fracking, but also underscores the need to be looking out for our friends and our communities. Can you give us a sense of how things are going on the Navajo Nation, where they're being hit hard by the coronavirus?
Yeah, we have to first put it in a little bit of historical context, right? So areas that are communities of resource extraction tend to generally be communities of color that are lower income. But Navajo Nation is pretty exceptional in the sense that it's been systemically targeted for decades and longer for exploitation. The Nixon administration in 1968 officially declared this area an energy sacrifice zone. And folks that are living on Eastern Navajo Nation live in the Greater Chaco area, are very rural. 40% of them lack access to electricity. Many of them don't have access to running water, so they're also going to community wells to get water. Their ability to follow sanitary standards is much more limited because of their rural nature and their access to basic facilities. On top of that, There are only, I think there's 15 grocery stores in the entire Navajo Nation and only a handful of health centers. And, you know, we're talking about a huge landmass that spans 4 states. And in Eastern Agency, these are folks that are dealing with a huge swell of corona impacts. Navajo Nation is feeling it. They're saying it's the 3rd, sometimes I think I even saw it was 2nd now, worst, hardest hit area per capita in the nation. So we're supporting our friends that have really organizing direct relief efforts. They're getting supplies and food and masks and water to their neighbors and communities. And truthfully, there's not enough help. There are a couple of different GoFundMe efforts that we link on our Frack Off Chaco page and also on the wearegreaterchaco.com page. But right now, the Bureau of Land Management, despite our requests, is not extending the public comment period for this drilling plan that communities have waited more than 20 years for. 6 years since they promised, but 20 years since there's been a plan that ever analyzed this industrialized onslaught of fracking in this area. And so we're doing what we can to support, and that's why we're asking all of our viewers and folks that were watching the live stream today to help amplify the message and spread the word that local communities need time to deal with the public health crisis that is in front of them, that is exacerbated by the oil and gas activities that right now the federal government is proposing even more of. So we're trying to get and continue to get BLM to put the brakes on more fracking in the area and support the emergency relief efforts that are happening right now in Greater Chaco.
Yeah, and I posted a link to a GoFundMe page where you can help contribute to the response efforts on the Eastern Navajo Nation. So please go to that. Please give. Wild Earth Guardians has given, and a lot of our allies have given. There's been a great outpouring of support, and they definitely need it. They need it because they're on the front lines, and they're strained in terms of resources. And as you said, Rebecca, the imperative for confronting the oil and gas industry right now and confronting fracking in particular near communities and on our public lands, just like more important than ever. I mean, as it's becoming just crystal clear that air pollution in particular is linked to increased risk of death from the coronavirus. I mean, that link has been established, and with the oil and gas industry being such a huge source of air pollution, it's more critical than ever to put the brakes on what the oil and gas industry wants.
Yeah. If I can just talk about the video too, because it's worth a moment. We're lucky that we get the support from lots of different people that want to lend their skills and talents to efforts to protect Greater Chaco. And one of them is a talented filmmaker by the name of Michael Ramsey, who's dedicated almost the past 2 years to working with some of our allies and coalition members in the Greater Chaco Coalition to tell the stories of oil and gas in Greater Chaco. And there's a collaborative effort led by Kendra Pinto and Julia Bernal, beautiful Navajo women and beautiful Pueblo women that are co-directing this feature-length film that was expected to come out late spring. We're trying to rush that production. Things are a little bit hard in Corona times, but talk about opportunity. When we asked our filmmaker that to help us put something together for the global live stream, we pulled this teaser video in less than a week together. And so it's just a testament to all of the hard work of the people that have continued to do this work and are committed to efforts to protect Greater Chaco. And we will continue to create more videos related to the efforts, but it's just a really beautiful 7.5 minutes highlighting some key voices in the coalition. And we're just really pleased to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, totally pleased. I mean, everybody really rose to the occasion here to get this teaser out in time for the Earth Week virtual events. And it was live streamed earlier this morning. You should be able to see it. I think I posted a link, but we'll make sure it gets up on our social media. So check it out. And, watch it and understand the broader context. Everybody's stepping up. Everybody is incredibly challenged, but we're staying focused on the need to confront the climate crisis and to maintain momentum, even in these very, very trying times. So it's very inspiring. And I hope people get a sense of connection and feel empowered after they watch it, because we need that more than ever. We need people to feel empowered. I know it's too easy to feel like we don't have any power at the moment. And there's a great Westward story. So the Denver Weekly, it's called Westward, had a story this week about what is the state of environmental advocacy in light of the coronavirus and the COVID health crisis. And it featured us and me, Wild Earth Guardians, but also our friends at 350 Colorado. And, like I said in there, these are disorienting times. And every day it seems like there's some crazy new news about the coronavirus and the COVID-19 health crisis. But at the same time, we have these tremendous opportunities and tools to still wield and make a difference for the climate and for our planet, and to still stay healthy and do our part. And I think it's important to realize that. And I just have to say, like, if you're disoriented, feel it, like, deal with it. This isn't about compartmentalizing and not, trying to forget about the craziness in the world right now. Oh, hey, we have a special guest today. Look at that. Hi, it's John Horning, Wild Earth Guardians Executive Director.
It is good to be here.
Yeah, John, thanks for popping in.
Happy Earth Day, everybody. Good to see Rebecca, Becca, and you, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, John, thanks for joining. And we were just on a webinar, an Earth Day webinar, and we were talking about the climate crisis, confronting fossil fuels, and you had some great reflections. I wonder if you could share a little bit about what we discussed, share for a couple minutes.
Sure. I mean, gosh, one of my reflections, I think, was just look at what the COVID crisis has created in terms of the will of our government to act in bold ways to marshal the resources of the federal government to protect Americans who are experiencing this global pandemic, who are experiencing the economic outfall of all of that. And those are muscles that we've allowed to atrophy. Reflecting on Earth Day, 20 million people gathered when Earth Day first happened. I'd like to think that virtually that's happening today. But my sense is we can do even better to build more movement, more power to hold our decision makers accountable. And one other point that to me feels especially relevant in these times, and I only touched on it, is that I think there's an elevated awareness around our shared vulnerability due to the climate crisis, the nature crisis, and of course, this global pandemic. And that, I actually didn't say this, but I heard our vice president using the word, our job is to protect the vulnerable. And it sounded so inauthentic. I so did not believe him.
Yeah.
But of course, it is true that it is the job of all kinds of leaders in this particular moment to protect the vulnerable. And we all have a heightened sense of our shared and individual vulnerability. And so Earth Day is fundamentally a recognition that the Earth is vulnerable and that our fate is inextricably tied to the fate of the Earth. And so it's a time for reflection. Anniversaries are a time for reflection. It's a time for action. So thank you for joining us on on the call. It's good to be here too.
No, it's great. It's good to reflect. I mean, I remarked that, I shared the standard cliche, every day is Earth Day for me, because it's true, it is. But at the same time, it's important to take advantage of these particular days, these very special days, to really reflect and really try to connect with the broader movement that we're trying to advance here. And that is key, as you said, John. Like, this is about movement building, and we need to keep it up, even if it is virtually. In fact, we might be able to take it to another level virtually. Rebecca was just talking about how the live stream, the Earth Day live stream that's happening today, tomorrow, and Friday is so far getting more viewers than the One World special that happened last Saturday that Lady Gaga helped organize with a lot of other people. And that was a great TV event, awesome spectacle, raised a ton of money. It's awesome to see a ton of people also show up in support of the Earth.
Anytime you can eclipse Lady Gaga, you're doing something good.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, and it's also important to realize that, protecting the Earth, yes, we're building a movement, we're thinking big, and Guardians Today shared a lot of a great high-level perspective on where we think we need to go as a society and as a planet and as a community. And if you haven't checked that out, I just shared links to a piece that you wrote, John, and also our action alert, where we're all taking the Earth Day pledge as guardians, and we're encouraging all our members, supporters, anybody who's watching to also take that pledge. So we'll be pushing that a bit more today, tomorrow, and Friday, and definitely stay tuned. It's all good, but I also want to emphasize that this stuff is great, but we don't make progress unless we're on the front lines to some degree. And I have Becca. Becca's joining us today. Becca's leading the charge on not necessarily a campaign, but an effort of ours, an initiative of ours to confront an insane pipeline proposal that Exxon has put forward. They want to build a massive new gas pipeline in southeast New Mexico and West Texas, a massive pipeline that would enable a huge surge in fracking and, of course, continue to fuel the climate crisis and keep our society hooked on fossil fuels. Becca, tell us a little bit about this pipeline.
Yeah, so it's this insane proposal to transport fracked gas from southeastern New Mexico to a hub in Texas. It's a 135-mile pipeline, so pretty long, and it actually has a massive capacity. I think it's 1.3 billion cubic feet per day transporting natural gas through it. And so it's a climate disaster, put plain and simple. It's climate disaster. And so a lot of this gas could be going overseas or to Mexico to be burned, and that contributes to the global climate crisis. And so we can't stand by while this pipeline is put in place in our backyard in southeastern New Mexico, where there's a lot of issues. Air quality has been off the charts recently in the last 3 years, and so this pipeline would add to that in an area where we're already seeing exceedances of federal ozone standards. So it would harm the community down there. They have no plan to address how to deal with COVID-19 and workers and bringing those workers into communities, which is something that really needs to be considered and thought of at this point. And then, the markets. Now is definitely not the time. If there is ever a time, really, in light of the climate crisis, no new pipeline should be happening, but especially not now when the economics are so insane. Oil was negative a couple of days ago, and natural gas has been pretty low for a long time. So it just makes no sense to be extracting these resources and exporting our global climate crisis. So
yeah, if anything, it's more important for us to be stepping up to confront it. And a lot of people would say, well, if the oil and gas industry is collapsing and Exxon won't be able to develop this pipeline anyway, then what's the point? Well, the point is we don't want it to get locked in and enable the oil and gas industry to come back with the same roar that they had before this crisis. I mean, this nation was in the midst of an unprecedented fracking boom before they started collapsing. And the Permian Basin in particular, southeast New Mexico and West Texas, actually became the world's largest oil producing region just last year. And so huge source of climate destroying greenhouse gas emissions and fossil fuels. And so what's that?
Not only was it the world, depends on the day, I think at this moment, world's largest producing oil field. The New Mexico portion of the Permian Basin is also the world's cheapest oil field. And that's an important thing to note too, is that New Mexico, which is one of the poorest states in the nation with the highest rates of child poverty and welfare, whose oil and gas economy is linked to public education, has the cheapest place to extract oil and gas. And, like Becca was saying a couple of days ago, or even yesterday, right? On the Texas side, oil was trading at negative $40. So, I heard you on the other climate panel, Jeremy and John, talking about the cumulative impacts of fossil fuel drilling and the avoided costs that this industry never has to pay for when it comes to hospital bills or even water contamination, and sometimes even the plugging and abandonment of their wells. When we consider that right now, getting that oil and gas out of the ground is actually costing money, it's not even generating any revenue. All the discussion about, should we be doing this is beyond a no-brainer. It becomes criminal to take it out of the ground.
Yeah, it's.
I have a question about the Exxon pipeline. This is sort of twofold question. One, very simple. Where is this? Can citizens do anything about this? Where is this in the public and planning process. And then secondly, Exxon is, we're talking the big boys. When I think about the Permian, I know it's the largest oil field in the country, on the planet now. Where does Exxon fit relative, like smaller independent players? Are the bigger players really driving most of the development in the Permian?
Great. Well, to your first question, so Wild Earth Guardians sent out an action alert this weekend, which we'll put a link in the Facebook.
Yeah, just post the link so people can take action.
Oh, great. It's already up. So the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is taking comments on a draft environmental assessment through tomorrow. You have to get your comments in before 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time because it closes Eastern Time. But definitely use that action alert, send it in. It's an incredible boondoggle. So the FERC, which is the agency in charge, really needs to hear from you. They tend to be insulated from public input. They deal a lot with pipeline companies. And so it's really important to get your voice out there and your comments submitted. So, and then in terms of Exxon, so it's actually XTO, a subsidiary of Exxon, and it has been a lot of major players in the Permian, but they're also feeling the heat from the coronavirus pandemic, which I think is really important to note. XTO just cut about a third of their capital spending, and so even if they're kind of bigger players that are at working on these pipelines, they're still really vulnerable because of the current economic situation. So I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind. And yeah, we'll see how it works out.
Well, it's been crazy in the Permian because it has been all the major oil companies that many of us are that we know, we're aware of, Chevron, Occidental Petroleum, Exxon or XTO, a lot of these companies. But because it's been so cheap to produce there's been a lot of smaller companies, way lesser known companies that have emerged and been able to undertake a lot of extraction activities. It's really a free-for-all in the Permian, or it was a free-for-all. It still is to some degree, even though it's in decline. But if I had to use one word, I'd say a mess. It's been a crazy mess. And we feel like it's very important to target companies like Exxon, the big ones, because previous to this crisis, they were throwing so much capital into the Permian, and it was just sending the message to the rest of the world that this is where the oil and gas industry was really like, this is where they were hitting the jackpot and really making it. And so, trying to thwart them and keep them from locking in more infrastructure and to keep them from throwing down more capital, it's just so critical right now, especially because, as Rebecca said, it's so cheap. It's been so cheap to produce there, and we can go into that for quite a while. But because it's so cheap, there is concern that in the Permian, that's where it will be the easiest for the oil and gas industry to rebound and come back to the way it was. And of course, as we've been saying to everybody, we can't afford to let things go back to the way they were. In this crisis, if we end up back to where we were before this crisis, then we have failed. We've failed as advocates, we've failed as a society. So really important to just shine a spotlight on that this Earth Day. Let's make sure moving forward, let's be inspired, let's build a movement, let's make sure that we create something that is entirely different, that is not normal in a way. I think there was a comment last week during a public hearing that yes, we want to return to normal, but if normal is what normal was before, then I don't want that. There's a comment from a young climate activist in New Mexico, like, I don't want that. I don't want the inequality. I don't want the climate crisis. I don't want our reliance on fossil fuels. We want a new normal, right?
Yeah, this is the opportunity of this crisis.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a great honor to have you here, and hope you're enjoying your Earth Day. Thanks, Becca, for the background there. Thanks, Rebecca, for joining us. If you're just tuning in, this is our Wild Earth Guardians Climate and Energy Program weekly Facebook Live check-in. We do this every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. So tune in, and if you missed part of this or all of this, this will be posted on Facebook later on video, so you can watch it again later. And I want to encourage everybody to stay plugged in, stay tuned into what Wild Earth Guardians is up to. Stay tuned, stay engaged on our social media channels. It's at Wild Earth Guardians on Facebook and Instagram, and at Wild Earth Guardian on Twitter. And sign up for our email list. Go to our website, wildearthguardians.org, and sign up for our email list. Every email we send you is important. We don't send fluff. We don't send stuff with nothing but cute furry critters. We do sometimes, send emails with cute furry critters, but it's because we don't want them killed. So very important stuff. So visit often, stay tuned, and also follow. Oh, what's that?
Well, I just like just for Earth Day's not over, just with our Climate Live Facebook being over. And so a couple more events that y'all can tune into later today at 5:30 p.m. and we'll post this on the chat. We're working with our friends at the Youth United for Climate Crisis Action, doing a virtual action to call for climate justice. And then I'll be participating in a virtual panel on the intersection of the coronavirus and climate change. So very apt to the conversation that we've been having. And it's going to be a great conversation, joined by Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller, representatives from the Native American Voters Alliance, some of our friends from other environmental organizations like Earthworks and Sierra Club, and farmers and doctors, and those fighting for immigration and racial equity justice as well. All talking about Corona and climate, and that's going to be at 7 p.m. Mountain this evening, and we'll post that link to the Facebook event in the chat.
Yeah, and I posted them earlier, but we'll post them again just so everybody knows. Stay plugged into Wild Earth Guardian's Facebook event page. It has the latest and greatest in terms of webinars and opportunities for virtual engagement. So please stay plugged in, stay active right now, stay active. It's very important. So we really appreciate it. And follow the Climate and Energy Program at Climate West on all platforms. If you really want to stay plugged into what the Climate and Energy Program is up to, the latest updates, latest perspective, that's where you'll find it. So, and as always, feel free to reach out to any of us. Our contact information is on Wild Earth Guardian's website. Again, that's wildearthguardians.org. Feel free to email, direct message over social media, whatever. We're here, and we want to answer your questions and get you information and insight if you need it. So with that, thanks again for everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We can't do this without you. Thanks, and happy Earth Day and happy Earth Week 2020. So here we go.
Awesome.
Happy Earth.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.